The millionaire CEO was dining with his fiancée when two little girls walked up and said, "You're our dad." And the restaurant froze. "Hi, my beautiful family. May the heavenly God pour his gentlest mercy upon every woman, honoring her tears, her patience, and her endless love that the world often overlooks. May he clothe you with strength when you are tired, surround you with peace when your heart is heavy, and lift you with hope when no one sees your struggle. You are the heartbeat of families, the quiet courage behind every success, the grace that turns pain into love. May your days be softened with comfort, your nights filled with calm, and your future guarded by divine light. May every sacrifice return to you as joy, every prayer whispered in silence be answered, and every step you take be blessed. You are worthy of the highest respect, the deepest love, and blessings that never run dry. If your heart is true, like the video, if your love is real, write, "I am with Mr. Peter." The champagne was Italian, the violinist was playing Vivaldi, and David Payne's engagement announcement was about to become the most spectacular disaster of his life. Angelo's wasn't just expensive. It was exclusive in the way only old money understood. Reservations required connections that money alone couldn't buy. A single dinner cost what most people earned in a week. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over white tablecloths where the city's elite discussed deals worth millions. Tonight, David had reserved the best table by the window overlooking the glittering cityscape. Dorothy Collins sat across from him, her new engagement ring catching candlelight as she laughed at something he'd said. In exactly 2 hours, they would stand and announce their engagement to the room. The society pages were already preparing their coverage. Everything was absolutely perfect. Then two little girls appeared beside his table. They were maybe 6 years old, heartbreakingly beautiful in matching purple dresses, dark curls framing serious brown eyes that held an intensity beyond their years. They stood there holding hands, staring at David with a focus that made his champagne glass freeze halfway to his lips. The violinist continued playing, completely unaware that the world was about to tilt sideways. "You're our dad," they said, in perfect practiced unison. The restaurant didn't go silent immediately. It was gradual, like dominoes falling in slow motion. Conversations died table by table as people turned to watch this unexpected drama unfold. Phones began emerging from designer purses and suit pockets. Dorothy's radiant smile vanished so completely it might never have existed. David's throat closed entirely. His mind went completely blank except for one desperate thought. This cannot be happening. "Excuse me?" Dorothy's voice could have frozen champagne mid-pour. "What did you just say?" But the girls weren't looking at her. They were staring at David with eyes that somehow knew him intimately, though he'd never seen them before in his life. Except he had seen those eyes every single morning in his mirror, in every childhood photograph of himself. These were his eyes staring back at him from two small faces he didn't recognize. "Girls, come here." The voice was calm, powerful, achingly familiar in a way that made David's heart stop completely. Abana Jasmine walked toward the table, and David forgot how to breathe. She was more beautiful than he remembered, and he'd spent 7 years trying desperately to forget how beautiful she was. Time had refined her, transformed the brilliant graduate student he'd loved into a woman who commanded space without even trying. She wore a charcoal designer suit that probably cost more than his car, diamond studs in her ears catching the light, her natural hair styled in elegant locks that framed her face perfectly. She moved through the restaurant with the kind of confidence that made people instinctively step aside. Based on the murmurs rippling through Angelo's like waves, people recognized her. Important people. Powerful people. People who actually mattered in this city. "Hello, David." Her voice was perfectly steady, completely controlled, no emotion coloring it whatsoever. Professional, distant, absolutely devastating. "Dorothy." Dorothy stood so fast her chair scraped loudly against the expensive flooring. "Who the hell are you?" Abana smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Not cruel exactly, just factual. like she was stating something everyone should already know. I'm the woman David loved before you existed in his life. These are the daughters he abandoned when I told him I was pregnant 7 years ago. She placed her hands on the girl's shoulders with obvious love and fierce protection. Pearl, Talia, say hello to your father. Hello, they said politely, like they'd been taught by someone who valued proper manners. David's entire world tilted completely off its axis. Daughters. His daughters. 7 years ago, the pregnancy he'd run from like a coward, the future he'd been too terrified to face. They were real. They existed. They were standing right here in front of him. This is completely insane, Dorothy hissed, her face flushing an angry red. David, tell her this is some kind of terrible mistake. Tell her it's true. The words came out before David could stop them, before he could think, before he could do anything except tell the absolute truth that was staring him directly in the face. Abana, I didn't know you were in the city. I didn't know you'd kept them. I didn't know— What? That I kept my daughters. Abana's laugh was soft and sharp simultaneously. Of course you didn't know. You changed your number 2 days after I told you I was pregnant. You moved to another city within a week. You made absolutely certain I couldn't find you, couldn't contact you, couldn't tell you anything about these children you helped create. The restaurant was definitely watching now. Phones were absolutely coming out. David saw multiple camera flashes. Someone was probably live streaming this disaster. By tomorrow morning, this would be everywhere. His reputation, his engagement, his carefully constructed life was imploding in real time, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Dorothy grabbed her expensive purse with shaking hands. I'm leaving, right now. David, don't you dare follow me. Don't you dare call me. Don't contact me ever again. We are completely done. Finished. Forever. She stormed out, heels clicking furiously against the floor. David barely noticed. He couldn't stop staring at Pearl and Talia, his daughters, complete strangers with his eyes, and Abana's beautiful smile, and an entire lifetime he'd missed. They were perfect. They were real. They existed in the world, and he'd had absolutely no idea. We don't need anything from you, Abana continued, her voice carrying just enough for nearby tables to hear every single devastating word. I just wanted my daughters to see your face once. They've been asking about you for months now, wanting to know what you look like, what kind of man their father is. I thought they deserved to know the truth. I thought they deserved to see the man who chose fear over family, who ran instead of staying, who proved that biology absolutely doesn't make you a parent. The words landed like physical blows. David felt every single one. Abana, please. His voice cracked completely. Can we talk somewhere private? Can I explain? I need to— Explain what exactly? That you were young? That you were scared? That you weren't ready? Abana's voice softened slightly, which somehow made everything so much worse. I know all of that, David. I knew it then. But I was young too. I was scared too. I wasn't ready either. And somehow I stayed anyway. Somehow I figured it out. Somehow I built a complete life for them while you built a life that pretended they didn't exist. She knelt down to the girls' level, her hands gentle on their shoulders. Say goodbye to David, babies. Goodbye, David, they said in that same perfect unison that broke something fundamental inside him. Wait, please just wait 1 minute. David stood so fast his chair fell backward with a crash that made half the restaurant jump. Please, just wait. Abana looked at him with eyes that had once loved him completely, unconditionally, with everything she had, eyes that now held nothing but calm indifference, which was somehow worse than hatred. I waited 7 years, David. I waited through pregnancy completely alone. I waited through labor completely alone. I waited through sleepless nights and first steps and first words and every single milestone. I'm done waiting for you to be ready to be a father. She took the girl's hands and walked toward the exit with perfect posture and absolute dignity. David's feet moved before his brain caught up. Abana, stop, please, just stop for 1 second. She paused at the door, turned slowly. For exactly 3 seconds, something flickered in her eyes. Pain, maybe. Memory, possibly. Something he couldn't quite name, but desperately wanted to understand. "Mummy, why is he crying?" Talia's voice was so small, so innocent. "Because he's sad, baby." "Did we make him sad?" "No, sweetheart. His own choices made him sad. Remember that always." They left, just walked out into the night like they'd never been there at all. David stood in the absolute center of Angelo's. Every single phone in the restaurant pointed directly at him. Dorothy gone forever, his engagement destroyed completely, and his past standing in the parking lot with 2 daughters he'd never known existed until 5 minutes ago. A man at the next table whistled low. "You know who that was, right? Abana Jasmine. She owns Jasmine Global Tech, worth $500 million at least. Built the whole company from absolutely nothing, more successful than you'll ever be, Payne, and you had her and threw her away. Absolutely incredible." David barely heard him. He was watching through the window as Abana buckled the girls into a black Tesla with practiced efficiency, her movements careful and loving. She glanced back once, saw him watching through the glass, held his gaze for exactly 2 seconds. Then she drove away, taillights disappearing into traffic. His phone started exploding with notifications, Dorothy's name flashing repeatedly, his publicist calling frantically, his mother, his business partner. The society blogs were already posting. He could feel it happening in real time. David Payne's secret family revealed at Angelo's. Tech mogul Abana Jasmine confronts abandoning ex-lover. Deadbeat dad worth less than the single mother he abandoned. David sank back into his chair. The champagne had gone completely warm. The candles were burning down to nothing. The violinist had stopped playing. His perfect evening, his perfect life, his perfect future had become a nightmare that he absolutely deserved. No, not a nightmare. Nightmares weren't real. This was a reckoning, because somewhere in this city right now, his daughters were asking their mother questions about the man who'd cried when he saw them. Somewhere in this city, the woman he'd loved and destroyed and abandoned had built an empire that made his own company look small and insignificant. Somewhere in this city was a complete life, a complete family, a complete future that should have been his and wasn't because he'd been too much of a coward to stay. The waiter approached nervously. "Sir, shall I bring the check?" David nodded without speaking. His hand shook as he signed the receipt, his signature barely legible. As he stood to leave, he noticed something that made everything exponentially worse. The reservation card on the table next to his, reserved for Jasmine party of 3. The table where Abana and the girls had been seated before approaching him. She'd been here the entire time. She'd sat 15 feet away, watching him with Dorothy, watching him celebrate an engagement to another woman. She'd planned this moment, chosen it deliberately, orchestrated his destruction with surgical precision, and somehow that made it so much worse and so much better simultaneously, because Abana Jasmine wasn't the desperate single mother he'd left behind 7 years ago. She was a woman powerful enough to walk into the most exclusive restaurant in the city, sit close enough to watch her ex-lover without him even noticing, and choose the exact perfect moment to completely shatter his world. She didn't need him. She'd never needed him. And that truth hit David harder than anything else that happened that terrible, perfect, devastating night. Chapter 2. What Love Used to Be. Dorothy's text came at midnight, short and absolutely brutal. "Don't contact me, don't explain, don't apologize, don't exist in my life. We're done, forever." David sat in his downtown penthouse, still wearing the suit from Angelo's with its perfect pocket square and cufflinks that cost more than Abana probably spent on groceries in a month 7 years ago. The view from his floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city sprawling below, 1,000,000 lights representing 1,000,000 lives that weren't currently imploding in spectacular fashion. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications kept coming like physical punches. Hashtags were forming. Think pieces were being written in real time by people who'd never met him. Women he'd never spoken to were calling him every name imaginable, and honestly, men were too. His publicist had sent 19 increasingly frantic messages, all basically variations of "call me immediately before this gets worse." He didn't call anyone. He couldn't. His voice didn't work properly. He poured expensive bourbon he wouldn't actually drink and let himself remember what he'd spent 7 years trying desperately to forget. 8 years ago, a technology conference in Chicago, back when he was 27 and ambitious but completely directionless, working for a startup that would fail spectacularly within 18 months. She'd been presenting on AI ethics and algorithmic bias, her passion making the entire auditorium lean forward in their seats. Abana Clark, her name tag had read. Graduate student working on her PhD. Future genius. Most beautiful woman he'd ever seen in his entire life. He'd approached her after the presentation, fumbled through an introduction that probably made him sound like a complete idiot. She'd smiled that smile that could light up entire rooms and asked if he actually cared about AI ethics or just wanted her phone number. Both, he'd admitted with complete honesty. Definitely both. She'd laughed and written her number on his conference program with a pen she'd borrowed from someone nearby. Their first date lasted 14 hours straight. Coffee at 9 in the morning turned into lunch, turned into walking through Chicago, talking about absolutely everything. She was smarter than him, funnier than him, more passionate about her work than he'd ever been about anything in his life. When she looked at him, he felt like he could become the man she seemed to see when she smiled. They fell in love the way people do when they're young and stupid, and absolutely convinced they've found the only person in the entire world who truly understands them, completely, desperately, terrifyingly, forever. Abana made him want to be better at everything. She challenged every lazy thought he had, supported every ambitious dream, loved him in a way that felt like finally coming home after being lost his entire life. For 2 incredible years, they built something beautiful together. She graduated with perfect grades, started working on her startup idea about ethical AI development. He moved to a better company, started actually climbing instead of just coasting. They talked about marriage constantly, about children they'd have someday, about buying a house with a big kitchen because Abana loved cooking and feeding people she cared about. Then she got pregnant, completely unplanned, totally unexpected. She'd sat him down in their tiny shared apartment with its second-hand furniture and plants she kept alive through sheer willpower, her hands shaking slightly, and told him the truth. She was pregnant, 8 weeks along. She was keeping the baby no matter what. He could choose to stay or choose to go, but she needed him to choose clearly and quickly. David had looked at her sitting there, at the woman he loved more than breathing, terrified and hopeful and strong all at once, and felt absolutely nothing except pure, overwhelming panic. His father had left when David was 5 years old. Just walked out one random Tuesday morning and never came back, never called, never sent money, never acknowledged David's existence again. David's mother had raised him completely alone, struggling with 2 jobs and constant exhaustion, and he'd watched her break slowly under the impossible weight of single parenthood. He'd promised himself at 10 years old that he would never put a woman through that, never become his father, never abandon his own children the way he'd been abandoned. So when Abana told him she was pregnant, all David could think was, "I'll fail. I'll hurt them worse than if I'd never been there at all. I'll leave eventually, because that's what men in my family do. Better to leave now, quick and clean, than destroy them slowly over years." "I can't do this," he'd said, the words feeling like they came from someone else's mouth. "I'm sorry. I just can't." Abana's face had crumbled like he'd physically struck her. "David, please. We can figure this out together. We can—" "I'm not ready. I'll never be ready. I'm so sorry." He'd left that night with 1 suitcase, changed his number the next morning, moved to another city by the end of the week. He'd run like the absolute coward he was, completely convinced he was sparing them from his inevitable failure as a father and partner, except he'd failed anyway, just faster, just more cruelly. David's phone rang, shattering the painful memory. His mother. He almost didn't answer, almost let it go to voicemail. But he answered. "David Michael Payne." Her voice was pure fury mixed with absolute heartbreak. "Tell me this is a vicious lie. Tell me you didn't abandon Abana when she was pregnant with your children." "Mom, that sweet, brilliant girl. I loved her like my own daughter. You brought her to Christmas dinner and she made my grandmother's sweet potato pie from memory after I mentioned it exactly once. And I thought, finally, my son found someone worthy of him, someone who could make him truly happy. And you left her pregnant?" I was scared. Dad left us and I was terrified I'd become him, and I thought, you were a coward. Your father was a coward who destroyed our family, and I raised you better than that, and you became him anyway. You became exactly what you swore your entire life you'd never be. The words hit like physical violence because they were completely, devastatingly true. "I know," David whispered. "Mom, I know. I'm so sorry." She was crying now, her voice breaking apart. "Those little girls, my grandbabies, my own granddaughters, and I missed 7 entire years of their lives because my son was too weak to face his fear. Do you understand what you stole? From them, from me, from Abana, from yourself?" "I understand now." "No, you don't. You can't possibly understand until you've lived it." "Then help me understand, please, Mom." "There's nothing to understand except this. You apologize to Abana. You apologize to those children. And then you spend every single day for the rest of your miserable life making it right. That's all you can do now. That's your only option." She hung up. The silence afterward felt absolutely enormous. David's hands shook as he set the phone down carefully. Making it right. How did someone make 7 years of complete absence right? How did someone fix that kind of fundamental damage? His email pinged loudly. His board chairman. "Emergency meeting tomorrow morning, 9 sharp. The Angelos incident has investors extremely concerned about your judgment and the company's reputation. Be prepared." Another email arrived immediately. "A major client pulling their multi-million-dollar contract. We can't be associated with this kind of PR nightmare. Consider our agreement terminated effective immediately." Another email. Another. They kept coming like punches. By the time the sun rose over the city in shades of pink and gold, David had lost 3 major contracts worth millions of dollars. His engagement, his mother's respect, and every single illusion that he could somehow outrun consequences forever. He pulled up Abana's company website with shaking hands. Jasmine Global Tech. The homepage showed her speaking at a major international conference, commanding the stage like she was born for it. The About page had her full biography, and reading it was absolutely staggering. PhD completed while pregnant with twins. Company founded when the girls were barely 2 years old. Now a recognized leader in ethical AI development with major government contracts and Fortune 500 clients. Awards, recognition, success that made his own accomplishments look small and hollow and meaningless. She'd done everything they'd dreamed of doing together. Without him. Despite him. Better without him than she ever could have been with him. David closed his laptop and watched the sun rise over a city that felt completely foreign now. Somewhere out there right now, Abana was probably making breakfast for Pearl and Talia, reading to them, getting them ready for whatever 7-year-olds did on Sunday mornings after destroying their absent father's life, living a complete, beautiful life he'd never be part of. His phone buzzed with a news alert. Jasmine Global Tech wins major government contract worth $200 million, beating out Payne Technologies in final bidding. David actually laughed out loud, a broken, bitter sound that echoed in his empty penthouse. She wasn't even trying to destroy him. She was just better. At business, at life, at absolutely everything that actually mattered, and he'd had her complete love once, had held it in his hands like something precious and irreplaceable, and he'd thrown it away because he was too terrified to believe he actually deserved it. Unless. The thought was small and desperate and probably completely foolish, unless he could somehow, impossibly, find a way to earn it back. Not her love. He absolutely didn't deserve that, and probably never would. But maybe some small corner of their lives, maybe a chance to know his daughters, Maybe an opportunity to prove he wasn't the man who ran, wasn't his father, wasn't the coward the entire internet now knew him to be. It was probably a foolish hope, almost certainly impossible. But foolish hope was infinitely better than no hope at all. And David Payne had absolutely nothing left in his life except hope. Chapter 3. The Crumbling Empire. The emergency board meeting felt like walking himself to his own execution. 9 o'clock sharp, David sat at the head of the conference table he'd sat at hundreds of times before, and the room felt completely alien. 5 board members stared at him with expressions ranging from deep disappointment to obvious disgust. The chairman's face was absolute granite. Jennifer, the CFO who'd been David's ally and supporter for years, wouldn't even look at him directly. "Your personal life is actively tanking our stock price," the chairman said without any preamble or politeness. "Investors are spooked. Major clients are leaving in droves. David, we need to have a very serious discussion about your immediate future with this company." David straightened his tie uselessly, a nervous habit. "I understand the optics are challenging right now, but I believe—" "The optics?" Jennifer finally looked at him, and her eyes were absolute ice. "David, you abandoned 2 children, 2 little girls. That's not optics. That's not a PR problem. That's your fundamental character as a human being. I was young when it happened. I made a terrible mistake that I deeply regret." "Abana Jasmine was young too," she cut him off sharply. "She built a company worth 10 times what ours is worth while raising twins completely alone. She got her PhD. She changed an entire industry. Meanwhile, you've been coasting on early success for years now, and frankly, we've all been too polite to say it out loud until this moment." The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. The chairman slid a thick folder across the polished table surface. "This isn't just about what happened at Angelo's last night. We've been conducting a thorough audit of company finances over the past 5 years. The numbers are bad, David. Really, really bad." David opened the folder with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, red ink absolutely everywhere. Losses he'd ignored or rationalized or simply not noticed while he was too busy living his expensive lifestyle. Bad investments made while he was distracted. Contracts he'd personally negotiated that lost the company millions. Decisions made from pure ego instead of actual strategy. He'd been failing systematically for years. He'd just been too arrogant and self-absorbed to notice or care. "We're $4 million in debt," Jennifer said quietly, precisely. "Your mismanagement has been systematic and ongoing. You've been living beyond the company's means, making consistently poor decisions, hiding behind charm and connections instead of actually doing the work." "We're not firing you," the chairman continued with obviously forced patience. "We're giving you the opportunity to step down voluntarily. Take a reasonable severance package. Let us bring in new leadership to save what's salvageable before it's too late." David looked around the table at people he'd considered friends and colleagues and partners for years, people he'd celebrated victories with, strategized with, built something meaningful with. Not one single person would meet his eyes now. "When?" His voice sounded like it belonged to a complete stranger. "End of the month. 4 weeks exactly. We'll make a joint announcement about mutually pursuing other opportunities. Keep it professional and relatively clean for everyone involved." David stood on legs that felt completely unreliable. "I understand completely." He walked out of Payne Technologies, knowing it was one of his very last times as CEO, and the weight of his comprehensive failure settled on him like a physical thing pressing down on his shoulders. In the parking garage, sitting alone in his expensive car that he probably couldn't afford to keep much longer, David called his therapist's office with shaking hands. "I need an appointment. Emergency situation. Today, if there's any possibility whatsoever." Dr. Rivera miraculously had a cancellation at 4 o'clock. David drove there in a complete daze, and when he finally collapsed into the familiar chair in her calm, neutral office, something inside him completely broke open. "I'm my father," he said, and started crying for the first time since he was a small child. "I ran from my family, just like he did. I failed at everything that actually mattered. I'm exactly what I swore my entire life I'd never become." Dr. Rivera, a composed woman in her 50s who'd been treating David's anxiety and commitment issues for 2 years now, leaned forward with focused attention. "David, why did you really run 7 years ago? Deep down, what were you actually afraid of? Failing them, being a terrible father, hurting them worse by staying and trying than by just leaving cleanly. So you decided to hurt them by leaving instead. You chose the certainty of causing immediate pain over the mere possibility of causing pain later." David flinched like she'd physically slapped him. "Yes, exactly that. And now, what do you want right now in this exact moment?" "I don't even know anymore. I just need to see them somehow. I need to know they're actually okay without me in their lives." "They are okay, David. Abana made absolutely sure of that. She gave them everything they needed and more." "I know. That's what kills me inside. They didn't need me at all. They never needed me." "Is that really what hurts the most? Or does it hurt worse that they actually thrived completely without you? That your absence didn't destroy them the way your father's absence destroyed you?" David sat with that question for a long moment. Let it sink in deeply. The truth was ugly and selfish and completely accurate. "Both," he finally admitted quietly. "I wanted to be necessary to someone. I wanted to matter fundamentally to someone's life. And I threw away the only people who could have made me matter in that way, and now I'm just nothing to anyone. Just a coward who everyone can see clearly now." "You're not nothing, David. But you are hurting in ways that have absolutely nothing to do with Abana or your daughters. You've been running from yourself for your entire adult life." They talked for 90 minutes instead of the usual scheduled 50, about his father's abandonment and how it had fundamentally shaped every relationship David had attempted since childhood. About fear and intimacy, and the way David had spent decades simultaneously craving deep connection while actively sabotaging any possibility of achieving it. About the critical difference between being a victim of your past and being permanently defined by it. When David finally left Dr. Rivera's office, he didn't feel better exactly, but he felt clearer somehow, like thick fog had lifted just enough to actually see the real landscape of his destruction. He drove to Abana's corporate headquarters without consciously planning to. He just needed to see it with his own eyes, needed to understand what she'd built while he was building nothing but his own hollow ego. The building was genuinely impressive without being ostentatious or showy. Modern glass and steel, clean architectural lines, the kind of design that spoke of real success without screaming about it desperately. The lobby was visible from the street through massive floor-to-ceiling windows. Sleek, professional, filled with employees who actually looked genuinely happy to be there. Then David saw them through the glass, and his heart stopped completely. Pearl and Talia, clearly visible through second-floor glass walls, sitting in a comfortable corner office doing homework at a small table designed exactly for children. A woman who looked like a professional nanny supervised them carefully, but they seemed completely content and focused. Happy, even. They were helping each other with something, their heads close together, laughing about whatever children laugh about when they feel safe and loved. And then Abana walked into that office, and David watched his daughters' faces absolutely light up like sunrise. She knelt down immediately, hugged them both tight, checked their homework with obvious interest and genuine pride. She looked exhausted, but fundamentally happy, complete. Whole in a way David had never managed to be. She'd built this, an entire company, a complete family, a full life, while he'd been building absolutely nothing but his own eventual collapse. Abana looked up suddenly, as if some deep instinct told her she was being watched. Their eyes met through 2 panes of thick glass and 50 feet of physical distance that might as well have been miles. For exactly 3 seconds, they just stared at each other across that impossible gap. David saw something flicker in her expression, recognition, memory, something else he couldn't quite identify. Then Abana turned away deliberately and said something to the girls. They gathered their things efficiently, practiced routine. David watched them leave the office together, Abana holding both their small hands. The three of them a complete unit that had never needed him and never would. He understood something absolutely fundamental in that moment. He could stand here forever, watching the life he should have had through glass like some ghost. Or he could actually do something real about it. Not grand gestures or throwing money at the problem or relying on charm, just the hard, unglamorous, difficult work of consistently showing up. However long it took, however much it hurt, however impossible it seemed. David pulled out his phone and found Abana's office number listed publicly on the company website. He didn't call, not yet. He wasn't remotely ready for that conversation, but he would be ready. He had to be, because the alternative was spending the rest of his life on the outside looking in at a family that should have been his, and David Payne was finally tired of running from the hard things. Chapter 4. The Balcony Conversation. The Children's Education Foundation Gala wasn't just another charity event. It was precisely where the city's elite gathered annually to feel good about themselves while writing conveniently tax-deductible checks. Tickets cost $5,000 each. The guest list read like an exclusive directory of concentrated power and old wealth. David hadn't planned on attending at all. He'd bought tickets months ago, back when he was still happily engaged to Dorothy, back when his life still made some kind of sense. But Abana's foundation was the primary sponsor this year. Her name appeared prominently on the elegant invitation in flowing script, so David went, knowing it was probably a terrible idea. He wore his absolute best suit and arrived completely alone, which immediately drew unwanted attention and whispered speculation. People knew about Angelos. Everyone knew. He could feel their eyes following him constantly, hear conversations pause awkwardly as he passed nearby. He found a strategic corner with a clear view of the entire room, and nursed a drink he had absolutely no intention of actually finishing while watching Abana command every single person's complete attention. She was absolutely magnetic tonight, wearing a stunning gold dress that caught every light source every time she moved. She glided effortlessly between wealthy donors and powerful politicians and influential business leaders with perfect ease and grace, making everyone laugh genuinely, listening with what appeared to be sincere interest, making each individual person feel like the most important one in the entire room. Pearl and Talia were with her constantly, poised and well-behaved in matching navy dresses, shaking hands politely when introduced to important adults, speaking when spoken to with obvious intelligence and careful preparation. David watched a major political donor kneel down respectfully to talk to the girls about their schools and interests. They responded in absolutely fluent French with perfect pronunciation. The donor looked absolutely delighted and charmed. He'd missed this completely, every single moment of this. Their first words in any language, their first steps, their first day of school, their first everything. Mr. Payne, a server appeared soundlessly beside him. Miss Jasmine asked me to inform you that if you're going to attend events her foundation is hosting, the very least you could do is actually donate something substantial. David took the tablet the server offered without speaking. The suggested donation amount was $10,000. He doubled it immediately to $20,000 and signed with hands that only shook slightly. The server nodded with carefully neutral professionalism and disappeared back into the elegant crowd. An hour passed slowly, then another. David stayed firmly in his corner. Abana never once looked in his direction, but he absolutely knew she knew exactly where he was standing. You didn't become that successful without developing excellent peripheral awareness. At 10 o'clock exactly, the formal program concluded officially. Guests began mingling more freely and casually. David slipped outside quietly to a balcony overlooking the glittering city, needing fresh air and space to think clearly. 5 minutes later, the door opened behind him. Abana stepped out deliberately, completely alone. She'd left the girls safely inside with someone obviously trustworthy. "You donated $20,000 to children's education," she said without any preamble. "That's genuinely new behavior for you." "I'm trying very hard to become a better person." "Trying and actually being are two completely different things, David." She leaned against the railing beside him casually, not close enough to touch, but closer than he'd honestly expected. They stood in comfortable silence for a long moment, the city lights stretching endlessly below them like fallen stars. "What do you want?" Abana asked finally, her voice carefully controlled. "What do you really want from me?" "Forgiveness eventually, a genuine chance, an opportunity to know my daughters." She turned to look at him very directly, and the streetlights caught her face perfectly. "You want forgiveness for 7 complete years of total absence in 5 minutes at a charity gala? That's not remotely how any of this works, David. No, I want to know what I have to do to actually earn it, over however long it takes, months, years, whatever you genuinely need from me." Abana studied him with an intensity that made him want desperately to look away. He didn't. He held her gaze steadily and let her see whatever she needed to see. "You can't charm your way back into our lives with words," she said quietly but firmly. "You can't buy your way back with generous donations to my causes. Those girls in there don't need a father who shows up exclusively for the Instagram-worthy moments and the impressive public events. They need absolute consistency. They need reliable presence. They don't need grand gestures that mean nothing. They just need someone who shows up every single time, no matter what. No excuses ever. Tell me exactly how to do that, please." "Why should I tell you anything? You had your perfect chance to be a father 7 years ago, and you deliberately chose not to take it. You chose yourself over them before they were even born." "I know that, and I will genuinely regret that choice until the day I die, but they're still my daughters biologically, and I'm asking you, begging you if absolutely necessary, for just one chance to actually know them." Abana's jaw tightened visibly. She looked away, out at the endless city. "Do you have any real idea what you're actually asking? Those girls have a complete life already, a solid routine, real stability, good friends, a school they love, activities, a whole functional world that works perfectly without you in it. You don't get to waltz in 7 years late and disrupt all of that just because you finally decided you're ready to try." "I'm not trying to disrupt anything at all. I'm trying to be part of it, however you allow, whatever boundaries you set." "And what happens when it inevitably gets hard? When the novelty wears off completely and you realize that actual parenting isn't fun adventures and cute photos? When you realize it's exhausting and boring and completely thankless most of the time? Then I'll still show up anyway, because that's what real parents do." Abana laughed, but there was absolutely no humor in it. "You have no idea what real parents actually do. You've never changed a single diaper. Never stayed up all night with a sick child running a high fever and crying. Never missed important work because of a school play. Never sacrificed a single thing you actually wanted for them. Not even once." "You're completely right. I haven't done any of that, but I desperately want to learn now." "It's not about wanting, David. It never was. It's about genuine commitment. It's about showing up even when you absolutely don't want to, even when it's incredibly hard, even when there's no reward. Then let me prove I can actually commit. Give me conditions. Give me strict rules. Give me whatever structure you need to feel safe letting me near them. I'll meet every single requirement." Abana turned to face him fully, and in her eyes he saw 7 complete years of raising children alone, of making every decision alone, of being simultaneously mother and father. "You want conditions? Fine. Here are my non-negotiable conditions. You move to this city permanently and immediately. You find a qualified therapist and commit to weekly sessions, real therapy, not just when you're in crisis mode. You build a relationship with Pearl and Talia slowly and carefully, supervised every second, completely on my terms. You don't miss a single scheduled visit, not even one. You don't make promises you can't absolutely keep. And if you cancel even once, if you let them down even one single time, you're done forever. Those are my completely non-negotiable conditions." David's heart was racing so fast he could hear it pounding. "I accept all of it." "Just like that? You're willing to uproot your entire life?" "I don't have a life worth keeping anymore. Payne Technologies is forcing me out at the end of this month. Dorothy is gone forever and never coming back. My mother won't speak to me. I have absolutely nothing except the chance you're giving me right now." "So yes, just like that." Abana's expression softened almost imperceptibly. This isn't charity, David. I need you to understand that clearly. I'm not doing this for you. I'm not doing this because I forgive you, or because I think you deserve it. I'm doing this because someday Pearl and Talia are going to ask me directly if I gave their father a genuine chance. And when they ask, I want to be able to look them straight in the eyes and say yes, honestly. But if you hurt them, if you let them down even once, I won't. You already did hurt them. You hurt them before they were even born. You don't get to promise you won't do it again. You just have to prove it through consistent action, day after day after day. David nodded, understanding completely. How long will it take? Before you believe I've earned it? As long as it takes. Months, years, maybe forever. However long before I actually believe you've become the kind of person who deserves to be called their father. I'll wait. However long it takes. Abana searched his face intently for something. Truth, maybe. Sincerity. Evidence of the man she'd loved instead of the coward who'd run. Why now, David? Why not 7 years ago when I actually needed you desperately? Why not 6 years ago when they were born? Why not 5 years ago, or 4 or 3? Why right now? Because I'm a coward who needed to lose absolutely everything before I understood what I'd actually lost. I'm sorry it took this long. I'm sorry it took public humiliation. I'm sorry I couldn't be brave 7 years ago. The honesty seemed to surprise her genuinely. Her eyes widened slightly. At least you're finally being honest about what you are, she said quietly. The balcony door opened. A woman poked her head out. Ms. Jasmine, the girls are getting tired. They're asking for you. Abana nodded. I'll be right there. 2 minutes. The woman disappeared. Abana turned back to David. I'll have my lawyer contact you next week about formal visitation, supervised sessions, 1 hour, twice weekly, in my home. I will be present for every single second of every single visit. Thank you, truly. Don't thank me. Thank me by showing up. Thank me by being consistent. Thank me by proving you're actually capable of being what they need. She walked toward the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. David? Yes? Those girls in there deserve so much better than what you've given them so far. Be better. Be the father they deserve, not the one you've been. I will be. I promise. Don't promise. Just do it. She went inside, leaving David alone on the balcony with the crushing weight of his second chance pressing down on him like physical pressure. He pulled out his phone and created a new note, typed carefully. Find apartment in city immediately. Find qualified therapist. Start therapy. Show up for every visit. Don't fuck this up. Then he added one more crucial line. Prove you're worth a second chance, every single day. Because Abana was absolutely right. Wanting wasn't enough. Promising wasn't enough. Only consistent action mattered now. And David Payne was finally ready to act instead of run. Chapter 5. Through their eyes, Pearl and Talia Jasmine sat cross-legged in their shared bedroom with its carefully divided space that reflected their different personalities perfectly. Pearl's side was meticulously organized, everything in its designated place, books arranged by subject and then alphabetically by author. Talia's side was creative chaos incarnate, art supplies scattered across every available surface, half-finished drawings pinned to walls creating a colorful collage, colors absolutely everywhere. They were supposed to be sleeping. It was past bedtime. Instead, they were whispering about him. "Do you think he'll actually come back?" Talia whispered into the comfortable darkness. Pearl, always the more analytical twin, considered this carefully before responding. Mama said he wants to, but she also says wanting to do something and actually doing it are completely different things. But he's our dad, our real biological dad. Biology doesn't automatically make someone a dad. Mama says that all the time. She says being a real parent is about action, not DNA. Talia hugged her beloved stuffed elephant tighter. I saw him cry at the restaurant. He was really crying. So what? Crying doesn't fix anything. Talia turned over to face her sister in the dim light from their nightlight. Maybe it means he's actually sorry, though. Pearl was quiet for a long moment. You're too nice, Talia. You always think the best of people. He left Mama when she told him she was pregnant with us. He didn't even try to stay. He just ran. But Mama also says people can change if they actually work at it. Mama also says that people show you exactly who they are the first time. We should believe them when they do. He showed us he's someone who runs when things get scary. They fell into thoughtful silence. Somewhere else in the house, their mother was still awake, probably working late again. Always working, always providing, always there for them even when she was exhausted beyond measure. What if we want to meet him? Talia asked into the quiet. What if we actually want to know him? Pearl didn't answer immediately. Then carefully, I don't know. Maybe we ask Mama about it when she's ready to talk about it. 3 weeks later, the first letter arrived. Abana read it first, standing in their sunny yellow kitchen while the girls ate breakfast before school. Her hands shook slightly as she unfolded the pages. What is it, Mama? Pearl asked with her usual sharp perception. A letter from David, written specifically to you two. Both girls froze completely. Talia's spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. What does it say? Talia asked quietly. Abana scanned it quickly, carefully checking for manipulation or guilt-tripping or any of the things she was afraid might be there. She found none of those things, just honest introduction. She handed it to Pearl. Read it if you want to. You absolutely don't have to. Pearl took it like it might explode. Talia scooted her chair closer, and they read together, their heads touching. Dear Pearl and Talia, my name is David Payne, and I'm your biological father. I know that probably doesn't mean very much to you because I haven't been present in your lives. That's entirely my fault, not yours. I want to tell you some things about myself, not to make excuses for my absence, but because you deserve to know where you come from and who your family is. The letter continued for 2 full pages. He told them about his mother, their grandmother, who desperately wanted to meet them, about growing up without a father himself and being terrified of repeating that pattern, about his work in technology and what he found genuinely interesting about it, about his favorite books and movies and how he'd learned from their mother that they loved mathematics and art. At the very end, I don't expect you to love me or even like me right now, but if you want to write back and tell me about yourselves and your lives, I would really like that very much. If you don't want to, I completely understand and respect that choice. Love, David. Talia looked up with eyes that were suddenly wet. Can we write back to him, Mama? Abana's heart twisted painfully. That's completely up to you, baby. It's your choice. Pearl reread the letter twice with obvious concentration. Then, he spelled everything correctly and used proper grammar. Mama always says that people who actually care about you care about the details and take time to do things right. That's true, Abana confirmed. So maybe he actually cares? Pearl asked uncertainly. Maybe. Or maybe he's just trying to look good. Only time and consistent action will tell us which one is true. That evening, after dinner and homework and their bedtime routine, the girls asked for paper and pens. They wrote their responses at the kitchen table while Abana pretended not to watch. Pearl's letter was precise and logical, asking carefully considered questions. What's your favorite mathematical equation and why? Why did you choose to work in technology specifically? What is your earliest childhood memory? Do you have any hobbies? Talia's letter was emotional and artistic, decorated with small drawings in the margins. Do you like to draw? What's your favorite color? Are you sad that you missed watching us grow up? I think I would be really sad if I were you. What's your favorite food? Do you like animals? Abana mailed them the next day, her hands trembling as she dropped the envelope in the mailbox. David's response came within 1 week. Thoughtful, detailed answers to every single question. More questions for them. No pressure, no guilt, no demands. A routine developed slowly. Letters every 2 weeks. David sent Pearl challenging logic puzzles that made her think. She solved them and created even harder ones to send back, testing him. He sent Talia professional quality art pencils and asked her to teach him techniques. She sent him drawings with detailed written instructions. Abana read every letter first, checking for anything inappropriate. She found nothing but genuine effort to connect. Then came the incident at Talia's school that changed everything. A false alarm. Some student thought pulling the fire alarm was funny, but in the chaos of hundreds of children evacuating simultaneously with sirens blaring and teachers shouting instructions, Talia got separated from her class. 6 years old, surrounded by screaming chaos, she completely panicked. David had been in a meeting just 3 blocks away. He heard the sirens, glanced out the window, and his heart absolutely stopped when he recognized Talia's school building. He ran without thinking. He found her on the sidewalk near the parking lot, crying and looking desperately for her teacher in the chaos. "Talia." He approached very carefully, kneeling to her eye level so he wouldn't seem scary. "It's David. You're completely safe. It's just an alarm. Nothing is actually wrong." She looked at him with huge, terrified eyes. "David?" "Yes, your mom is on her way right now. Can I stay with you until she gets here? Would that be okay?" Talia nodded, still trembling. David sat beside her on the curb, careful not to touch her without permission, just being present. "Want to hear a story about stars while we wait?" "Okay." He told her about constellations, keeping his voice calm and steady to help ground her. About how ancient peoples looked at random scattered stars and made them into pictures and stories. About how light from stars takes so long to reach Earth that when we look up at night, we're literally seeing the past. "So the stars we see might not even exist anymore?" Talia asked, distracted from her fear. "Some of them, yes. They might have died millions of years ago, but we still see their light anyway. That's kind of sad, or kind of beautiful. Even when things are gone, they leave something behind. Their light still reaches us." Abana arrived running, absolutely frantic. "Talia!" Talia jumped up. "Mama!" Abana scooped her up, held her tight, then saw David standing nearby. Understanding crossed her face immediately. "I was nearby for a meeting," David explained quickly. "I heard the sirens and just wanted to make sure she was okay. I didn't take her anywhere, I just stayed with her." Abana's eyes were wet as she studied David, then looked at Talia. "Are you okay, baby?" "I'm okay now. David told me about stars. It was really nice." Abana looked at David for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for being here." Just 2 words, but they mattered more than anything. That night, Abana sat both girls down in the living room. "David has asked if he can visit, to meet you properly in person. How would you feel about that?" Pearl, always cautious. "Where would he visit?" "Here, in our home. I'll be here the entire time, just 1 hour. We can try it once and see how everyone feels." Talia looked hopeful and scared simultaneously. Pearl looked uncertain. "What if we don't like him after we meet him?" Pearl asked. "Then we don't do it again," Abana said firmly. "You two are in control, always. Your comfort and safety come first." Pearl considered this carefully. "Just 1 hour?" "Just 1 hour." "Okay, we can try 1 hour." Talia bounced slightly in her seat. "Can I show him my drawings?" Abana smiled despite the anxiety churning in her stomach. "If you want to, baby, absolutely." After they went to bed, Abana called David. Her heart was pounding. "They agreed to meet you." Complete silence on the line. Then David's voice, thick with emotion. "Thank you. I'll be there. Whatever day, whatever time you say. Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock. Don't be even 1 minute late." "I won't be." "Abana, Don't. Just show up. That's all I need from you right now." She hung up before he could respond, before she could hear the emotion in his voice and feel her carefully constructed walls starting to crumble. Because this wasn't about her and David and whatever they used to be. This was about 2 little girls who deserved to know their father if he could prove himself actually worth knowing, and Abana would protect them with absolutely everything she had while they figured that out. Chapter 6. The Twist. Abana's parents arrived on Friday evening, the night before David's first scheduled visit. Her mother, Ruth, brought containers of home-cooked food. Her father, Joseph, brought the heavy weight of 7 years of unspoken judgment. "You're really letting that man meet my granddaughters?" Joseph's voice was tight with something Abana couldn't quite identify. Abana stirred the pot on the stove, deliberately not looking at him. They deserve the chance to know him, or at least to know they tried. That man abandoned you when you needed him most. "I'm very aware, Daddy. I was there." Ruth touched Joseph's arm gently. "Baby, we need to tell her. We should have told her years ago." Abana turned completely around. "Tell me what exactly." Her parents exchanged a long look. Joseph's jaw worked like he was chewing something bitter that wouldn't go down. 7 years ago, Ruth said quietly, her voice careful. "About 2 weeks after David left you, he came to see us." The wooden spoon in Abana's hand clattered to the floor, sauce splattering. "What did you just say?" Joseph stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly. "He showed up at our door late at night crying like a child, said he'd made the worst mistake of his entire life, said he wanted to marry you, wanted to be there for the baby, said he was finally ready and wanted our blessing." Abana's legs went weak. She grabbed the counter to stay upright. "And you didn't tell me? You didn't even mention this?" "You were 8 weeks pregnant and absolutely devastated," Joseph said, his voice rising with defensive anger. "That boy ran the moment things got difficult, then he came crawling back 2 weeks later like that somehow made it acceptable. I told him no. I told him that if he couldn't commit from the very beginning, he shouldn't commit at all." "You sent him away?" Abana's voice was barely a whisper. "You made that choice for me? I protected you. You took away my choice." Abana was shaking now. "You took away my agency, my right to make my own decisions about my own life." Ruth stepped between them. "Abana, sweetheart, you have to try to understand. You were so broken when he left. We'd watched you cry for days. You thought wrong." Abana's hands were shaking violently. "I spent 7 years believing he never even tried to come back. 7 years telling our daughters their father didn't want them, didn't care enough to try. And he did try. 2 weeks later, he actually tried." Joseph's face was stone. He was weak, a scared boy. He would have run again eventually. "You don't know that. You can't possibly know that. I know men like him, boys who run when reality gets difficult." Abana laughed, a harsh sound with no humor. "And what do you think he's doing right now, Daddy? He's here. He moved to this city. He quit his job. He's in therapy every week. He writes to our daughters. He showed up when Talia needed him at her school. Maybe if you'd given him a chance 7 years ago, if you'd let me make my own choice." "Don't you dare blame me for his failures." "I'm not blaming you for his failures. I'm blaming you for taking away my choice, for lying to me for 7 years, for deciding you knew what was best for me like I was a child who couldn't handle my own life." The kitchen fell into heavy silence. Abana sank into a chair, her head in her hands. "I could have made an informed decision. I could have told him to prove himself or leave forever. I could have set terms and boundaries. But you took that from me. You decided for me. You treated me like I was incapable of handling my own life." Ruth knelt beside her daughter, tears streaming. "We were wrong. I can see that now, baby, but we were so scared. We'd watched you love that boy with everything you had, and when he left, we watched you completely shatter. We just wanted to protect you from more pain." "By lying to me for 7 years? That's protection?" Joseph's voice was quieter now, almost broken. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was protecting my baby girl from a weak man who would hurt her again. Well, you weren't. You were wrong." They sat in terrible silence. The food on the stove had stopped bubbling. Finally, Abana spoke. "Does he know that you turned him away?" "I don't know," Ruth admitted. "We never told him to keep it secret. We just assumed he'd move on and never mention it." Abana stood, her decision crystallizing. He's meeting the girls tomorrow, and after that meeting I'm asking him what happened 7 years ago. I deserve the complete truth, even if it's 7 years too late. Joseph opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He looked suddenly old, tired, diminished. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I am genuinely sorry. I thought I was protecting my baby girl from more heartbreak. I never wanted to hurt you. Abana's eyes filled despite herself. I know, Daddy. But you did hurt me anyway. You hurt all of us. Her parents left shortly after. Abana cleaned the kitchen in a daze, her mind spinning with this new information. David had tried to come back. Not after years of therapy and growth and loss. After 2 weeks, when the fear was probably still overwhelming and he'd barely had time to process anything. He'd tried, and her father had sent him away. It didn't erase what David had done. He'd still left initially, still made the coward's choice at the worst possible moment, still caused 7 years of damage, but it added crucial context, a different shape to the story she'd been telling herself and their daughters for 7 years. That night, she pulled out the box where she'd saved every letter David had sent to the girls, read them all again carefully, looked for signs of manipulation, of selfishness, of the scared boy who'd run. Instead, she found a man genuinely trying. Imperfectly, awkwardly, but sincerely. She found someone who'd spent 7 years becoming the person he should have been from the beginning. And she found herself angry. At her father for interfering, at David for leaving in the first place, at the universe for stealing 7 years they might have had. But underneath all that anger, something else was growing. Hope. Terrifying, fragile, probably foolish hope that maybe second chances were actually possible. Saturday came faster than she was ready for. At exactly 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Abana opened it with her heart pounding. David stood there in simple jeans and a plain shirt, holding nothing. No gifts to buy affection, no bribes, just himself. Thank you for allowing this, he said quietly. Abana stepped aside. The girls are nervous. I'm nervous. You're probably nervous. Let's just see what happens. David nodded and came inside. Pearl and Talia sat on the couch in matching positions, identical serious expressions. They dressed carefully for this, matching blue dresses, hair braided with obvious care. David sat in the chair Abana pointed to. She stood nearby, watching every micro-expression. Hi, David said, his voice shaking slightly. I'm David. I'm your biological father, but I haven't earned the right to be called Dad yet. Maybe I never will earn that, but I'd really like to get to know you both, if you're willing to let me try. Pearl spoke first, direct and challenging. Why did you leave us? Abana held her breath. David could have lied, could have softened it, made excuses. He didn't. I was afraid. My own father left me when I was very young, and I was terrified of being a bad father to you. So instead of trying and possibly failing, I ran. I hurt your mother deeply, and I missed watching both of you grow. That's the complete truth, and I'm sorry for all of it. Talia's voice was tiny. Do you love us? David's eyes filled with tears. I don't know you yet, and I think love requires actually knowing someone. But I already care about you more than I thought was possible, and I want to earn the right to love you properly, if you'll let me try. Honest, raw, no manipulation or guilt. The hour passed in awkward but genuine conversation. David answered every question they asked without deflecting. He listened carefully when they talked about school, about friends, about their lives. He didn't try to be their best friend or buy their affection with false promises. He just showed up fully present. When the hour ended, David stood carefully. Thank you for giving me this time. It meant everything. Talia surprised everyone by hugging him suddenly. Quick, almost businesslike, but real. You can come back if you want to. Pearl didn't hug him, but she nodded seriously. Maybe next Saturday too. After he left, Abana sat with the girls on the couch. How do you feel? Pearl shrugged with studied casualness. He seems really sad. He is sad, Abana confirmed. Did we make him sad? Talia asked worriedly. No, baby. His own choices made him sad, but maybe he's trying to make better choices now. That night, after the girls finally slept, Abana's lawyer called. I have David's signed visitation agreement, twice weekly, supervised, absolutely no deviation from the schedule. He agreed to every single term without requesting any changes or negotiations. Thank you for handling this. Abana? Off the record, just between us? Yes? I've seen dozens of absent parents try to come back into their children's lives. Most of them want to look good, not actually be good. This man, I genuinely think he's trying to actually be good. Just thought you should know my professional opinion. Abana hung up and stared at her ceiling for a long time. Trying wasn't the same as succeeding, but maybe it was enough to build something on. Maybe. Chapter 7. Building Trust. 3 months of visits, twice every single week without fail. Wednesdays at 4 o'clock, Saturdays at 2. David was never once late, never cancelled, never had an excuse for why he couldn't show up. At first, the girls were polite but emotionally distant. By week 6, they started to actually relax around him. By week 10, they were actively teaching him things about their world. No, you have to blend the shadows like this, Talia explained with patient concentration, showing David her watercolor technique. See, you can't just color it dark. You have to layer it and blend it so it looks natural and real. David tried, his painting looking childish compared to hers. Like this? So much better. You're actually learning. I'm proud of you. Pearl was significantly harder to win over. She watched David with careful, analytical eyes, asking questions specifically designed to test his sincerity and commitment. What's Mama's favorite food? I don't know what it is now. 7 years ago, her favorite was her grandmother's sweet potato pie. It still is, Pearl said, watching his face carefully. Do you remember how to make it? No, but I'd really like to learn if your mother would be willing to teach me. She won't teach you. That's completely understandable. I accept that. Do you actually understand why she doesn't trust you at all? David met her challenging gaze directly. Yes, Pearl, because I broke her trust in the worst possible way. Trust takes years and years to build and only seconds to completely destroy. I destroyed hers. If she ever gives it back to me, it'll only be because I spent years earning it back slowly. Pearl nodded slowly, something shifting in her expression. You're smarter than I thought you'd be. I'm trying very hard to be worthy of you both. One Saturday afternoon, something shifted fundamentally. Talia fell asleep against David's shoulder while he read to them. He froze completely, afraid to move even slightly, and wake her. Abana watched from the kitchen doorway, her heart doing something complicated and painful in her chest. Pearl saw her mother watching. Mama, why don't you love David anymore? Abana's breath caught audibly. It's very complicated, sweetheart. But you used to love him, you really did. Yes, very much, more than almost anything. Could you love him again? Like, ever? The question hung in the air like smoke. David was carefully not looking at Abana, his entire body tense. I don't know, baby, Abana said quietly, honestly. Sometimes love isn't enough by itself. But it's something though, right? Pearl pressed with her characteristic persistence. Yes, it's definitely something. After that particular visit, David lingered uncertainly at the door. I'm sorry Pearl put you on the spot like that, he said quietly. She's 6. She doesn't understand complicated adult emotions yet. Do you? Understand what you want from this, I mean? Abana looked at him carefully. Really looked. 3 months of consistent showing up had changed something in him, or maybe revealed who he'd actually been underneath all the fear. He looked tired but solid, present in a way he'd never been before. I don't know what I want, she admitted. But I know I don't hate you anymore. That feels like real progress. David's smile was sad and genuine. I'll absolutely take it. As he walked to his car, Abana called out impulsively, David? He turned immediately. You're doing well, with them, with all of this. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. It was the first actual compliment she'd given him. David felt it like physical warmth spreading through his chest. I will. I promise I will. Month 4 brought new challenges and opportunities. Pearl had a mathematics competition at her school. David asked very carefully if he could attend. You can watch from the back row, Abana said. Don't approach her before or after. Don't disrupt her focus in any way. Just watch quietly. David came, sat in the very last row. Pearl didn't know he was there until after the competition ended, when she happened to see him leaving quietly. You came to watch? She said, surprise clear in her voice. Of course I came. You're absolutely brilliant at mathematics. I wanted to see you compete. Did I do well? You were genuinely amazing. I was incredibly impressed. Pearl smiled then. A real genuine smile. Then she did something that shocked absolutely everyone around them. She hugged him, quick, almost businesslike, but completely real. Thanks for coming to watch me, she said, then ran back to where Abana stood waiting. David stood alone in the parking lot, wiping his eyes, feeling like he'd won something more valuable than any business deal or contract he'd ever negotiated. Month 5 brought another milestone. Talia's artwork was selected for a prestigious school gallery show. The whole family went, Abana, the girls, Abana's parents. David showed up separately, keeping his distance respectfully. Joseph saw him standing alone, approached deliberately. You're still here, Joseph said. Yes, sir. I didn't think you would be. David looked at the man who'd sent him away 7 years ago. Abana had told him one difficult conversation where David learned about his father-in-law's interference stealing years. He could be angry. He'd chosen not to be. I'm not the same person I was 7 years ago, David said quietly. I don't know if I would have stayed back then. You might have been right to send me away. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. Joseph studied him carefully. Abana told you what I did. Yes. And you're not angry? I was angry, but anger doesn't help Pearl and Talia. Being present helps them, so that's what I'm doing. Joseph's expression softened slightly. My granddaughters talk about you constantly. David said this. David showed me that. They love you. David's voice cracked. I don't deserve it. No, you don't. But love isn't about deserving. It's about choosing. They chose you. Don't make them regret it. I won't, sir, I promise. Joseph extended his hand deliberately. David shook it firmly. Not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. Later, Talia ran up to David excitedly. Come see my painting. He followed her, and she explained every brushstroke with genuine enthusiasm. Pearl joined them, adding her analytical perspective on the composition. Abana watched from across the room, her daughters with their father, learning together, laughing together, building something. Her mother appeared beside her quietly. He's different. I know. You're softening toward him. I know. That scares you. Abana nodded, terrified. What are you going to do about it? I don't know, Mama. I honestly don't know. But watching David listen to Talia with complete focus, asking questions about her art, being fully present in this moment, Abana felt something she hadn't felt in 7 years. Not love, not yet, but possibility, and that was almost more terrifying than hate had been. Chapter 8. Everything changes. Pearl collapsed during soccer practice. Abana got the call at work. The words didn't make sense at first. Hospital, unconscious, ambulance. She ran. David got the text from Abana's mother. Pearl in hospital. Serious. Come if you want. He ran faster. They arrived at the emergency room within minutes of each other. Abana was shaking, makeup streaked, terrified in a way David had never seen. What happened? He asked. They don't know. She just fell. She won't wake up. Oh God, David, she won't wake up. He wanted to hold her, didn't. Just stood beside her while they waited for news. Hours crawled by. Talia arrived with Abana's parents, crying. David picked her up without thinking, and she clung to him. Is Pearl going to die? Talia whispered. No, sweetheart. The doctors are taking care of her. You promise? David couldn't promise that. I promise we're all here for her. All of us. More tests, more waiting. Finally, a doctor. Pearl has a genetic cardiac condition. It's manageable with medication, but we need to test both parents to understand the severity and inheritance pattern. Both parents. David and Abana gave blood. Waited again. In the hospital cafeteria at 3 in the morning, exhausted and terrified, they sat across from each other with coffee neither would drink. Thank you for coming, Abana said. Where else would I be? You could have stayed away. This isn't... We're their parents. That doesn't require us being together. It requires us being here. Abana's tears finally came. I was so scared. I am so scared. David reached across the table, hesitated, then took her hand. She didn't pull away. She's going to be okay, he said. Pearl's the strongest kid I've ever met. She gets that from you. She gets her stubbornness from you. They almost laughed. Almost. Pearl woke at dawn, groggy, scared, but okay. The medication would work. She'd need monitoring, regular checkups, but she'd be fine. David and Abana stood on either side of her bed, both holding her hands. Mama! David! Pearl's voice was small. We're here, baby, Abana said. Both of you? Both of us, David confirmed. Good. Pearl closed her eyes. That's good. Later, after Pearl fell back asleep and Talia was taken home by Abana's parents, David and Abana stood in the hospital hallway. I should go, David said. Let you rest. Wait. Abana touched his arm. I read your book. David froze. The memoir had published 2 months ago. He hadn't told Abana, hadn't wanted her to think it was manipulation. And it destroyed me. You wrote about us, about what you lost, about what I built. You didn't spare yourself. Every mistake, every failure, every moment of cowardice, you just laid it bare. I'm sorry if... Don't apologize. It was honest, maybe the most honest thing you've ever written. They stood in silence. All the proceeds went to single mothers' charities, Abana said. It felt right. You could have made money. You need money. I don't need money. I need to be better. Money doesn't fix that. Abana looked at him with something in her eyes he couldn't name. You've changed, David. Really changed. I'm trying. I see it, in how you are with the girls, how you showed up today. You didn't make this about you. You were just there. That's what parents do. Yes, it is. The moment stretched. Then Abana said, I need to tell you something, and I don't know how you'll take it. Okay. My company is opening a London office. They've asked me to relocate for 18 months to oversee it. I accepted the position 2 months ago, before you came back into our lives. David's world tilted. London. We leave in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. I'm not asking your permission. This is my career, my opportunity. But I wanted you to know, you can visit the girls twice a year. We'll arrange video calls. They won't lose you completely. David's mind raced. 6 weeks, 18 months apart, just when he was building something real. I understand, he heard himself say. You can't turn down this opportunity because I decided to show up. No, I can't. When do you leave exactly? February 3rd. 6 weeks and 2 days. David nodded slowly. Then I'll make the most of the time we have. And when you go, I'll be here waiting, however long it takes. Abana's eyes filled. You're not going to fight me on this. It's not my place to fight you. You've built an incredible life. This is part of that. I won't be the reason you stop building. Something in Abana's expression cracked. David, but can I ask for something? What? Let me take the girls to the park tomorrow. Just us. Supervised if you want, but I want them to have good memories of me before you go, so they don't forget. They won't forget you. Promise me anyway. Abner nodded. Okay, tomorrow, the park. David left the hospital as the sun rose, his mind spinning. 6 weeks. He had 6 weeks to prove he was worth remembering for 18 months. 6 weeks to show Pearl and Talia they had a father who wouldn't disappear. 6 weeks to somehow, impossibly, find a way to keep the family he'd just found. And David Payne, for the first time in his life, had absolutely no idea how to make that happen. Chapter 9. The Impossible Choice. David didn't sleep. He researched London, tech jobs, visa requirements. By noon, he'd found 3 companies hiring in his field. By evening, he'd sent applications to all 3. By the end of the week, he had 2 offers. He chose the lower-paying one. It was stable, ethical work at a non-profit tech foundation. It wouldn't make him rich, but it would let him stay close to his daughters. He quit his current job without hesitation, sold his apartment, started planning a move across an ocean. He didn't tell Abner, not yet. The visits with Pearl and Talia intensified. Every moment felt precious now. David taught Pearl chess. Talia taught him watercolor. They went to museums, parks, bookstores, building memories. "Are you excited about London?" he asked them one Saturday. "Yes," Talia bounced. "Mama says there are castles." Pearl was quieter. "I'll miss my friends, and my school, and you." David's heart cracked. "I'll miss you too, so much." "Will you forget about us?" "Never, not even for a second." "Promise?" "I promise." 3 weeks before London, David knocked on Abana's door at 8 at night. Unusual, unscheduled. She opened it, concerned. "Is everything okay?" "I need to tell you something." They sat in her living room. The girls were asleep. "I'm moving to London too," David said. Abana stared. "What?" "I have a job. I found an apartment. I'm moving 2 weeks after you do, once my visa clears. I'm not asking to live with you or be with you. I'm just asking to be in the same city as my daughters." "David, you can't upend your entire life." "Why not? You did it 7 years ago when I left you. You rebuilt from nothing while pregnant with twins. If you can do that, I can move to London." "That's not the same." "You're right, it's not. You did it alone and scared. I'm doing it with purpose and support. I'm doing it because I refuse to lose my daughters again." Abana stood, pacing. "This is crazy. What about your career? Your life here?" "My career is what I make it. My life is wherever my daughters are. I've spent 7 years prioritizing the wrong things. I'm done making that mistake." "David, I'm not asking your permission, Abana. I'm informing you as a courtesy. I'll respect your boundaries. I'll follow your rules. But I'm going to be there. For Pearl and Talia, however you allow." Abana looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. Fear, hope, anger. "You're serious?" "Completely." "You've already accepted the job?" "Yes." "And if I asked you not to?" "I'd still go. But I'd hate that we disagreed." Abana sat down hard. "I don't know how to feel about this." "That's okay. You don't have to know." They sat in silence. Finally, Abana spoke. "The girls will be happy you're coming." "And you?" She looked at him. "I don't know, David. I honestly don't know." 2 weeks before London, Abana asked David to meet her at the park. Their park, where they'd fallen in love 8 years ago. He arrived hopeful. Maybe this was progress. Maybe she was softening. Maybe... Abana was crying before she spoke. "You can't come to London." The world stopped. "What?" "I can't do this, David. Every time I think I can let you back in, I remember labor alone. Their first words with no one to share them with. 7 years of, 'Mommy, why doesn't Daddy love us?' I can't risk my heart again. I can't let the girls get more attached if you might leave." "I won't leave. I've proven..." "You've proven 1 year. You destroyed 7. The math doesn't work, David. Then give me 7 years. Give me 10. Give me..." "No." She stood, resolute. "I'm taking the girls to London. You can visit twice a year under supervision. That's all I can give you. I'm sorry." David felt like he was drowning. "Abana, please, I love you. I've always loved you." Her tears fell harder. "I know, and I hate that it's not enough." "What if I promise?" "Don't make promises, just don't." "Then what do you want from me?" "Nothing, that's the point. I don't want anything from you because every time I do I remember you weren't there." David stood, desperate. "I'm here now. I've been here for months. I haven't missed a single visit. I moved to this city for you. I quit my job for you. What more can I do?" "You can't fix 7 years in 1 year, David." "I know, but I'm trying. What else can I—" "Stop trying!" Abana's voice broke. "Stop trying to fix this because you can't. You can't fix the labor. You can't fix the sleepless nights. You can't fix telling our daughters their father didn't want them. You can't fix any of it." The words hung between them like a chasm. David's voice was barely a whisper. "So that's it? You're taking them to London and I get twice a year? That's it? After everything? After all the work?" "After everything." David turned away, hands shaking. "I'll accept your terms. Twice a year visits, monthly video calls, whatever you want. But I'm still moving to London. You can't stop me from living in the same city." "Why? What's the point if you can only see them twice a year?" "Because I'll know they're nearby. Because if they need me, I'll be close. Because hope is better than nothing." Abana's face crumbled. "This is cruel. To both of us." "Life is cruel. I'm just trying to make the best of what I destroyed." He walked away before she could see him completely break. That night, Pearl and Talia knocked on their mother's door. "Mama, are you crying?" Abana wiped her face. "Come here, babies." They climbed into bed with her. "Is David coming to London with us?" Talia asked. "No, sweetheart. He's staying here." "Why? We love him." The words were a knife. Pearl, always perceptive, said quietly, "You love him too, Mama. I see it." "It's not that simple, Pearl." "Why not?" How did she explain to a 6-year-old that love and trust weren't the same thing, that her heart wanted to forgive, but her head knew better? "Because love isn't always enough," Abana said finally. "But it's something," Pearl pressed. "Right?" Abana thought about David's face in the park, about him moving to London anyway just to be near them, about a year of showing up, of proving himself, of trying. "Yes," she whispered, "it's something." That night, she sat alone in her bedroom, staring at a photo from 8 years ago, her and David at a tech conference, laughing in love, believing they had forever. She'd spent 7 years hating him, 1 year watching him change, and now she was choosing fear over hope. Just like he had. The realization hit like a physical blow. She was doing exactly what David had done, running instead of fighting, protecting herself instead of risking her heart. Abana pulled out her phone, typed a message, deleted it, typed another. "I think I'm making a mistake." She stared at the unsent message to David for an hour, then deleted it and turned off her phone. 2 weeks until London. And Abana had never felt more lost in her life. Chapter 10. The Reunion. 1 week before London, David stood at Abana's door at 9 at night, soaking wet from rain. She opened it, surprised. "David, I'm not here to change your mind." "Then why are you here?" "To say goodbye, properly, to the girls and to you." She let him in. The girls were asleep upstairs. They sat in the living room where they'd sat dozens of times. David pulled out 3 envelopes. "These are for Pearl and Talia. Letters for every birthday until they're 18. Everything I want them to know. How proud I am, how sorry I am, who they are." His voice cracked. "I'll still visit twice a year, like you said, but in case something happens, they'll have these." Abana took the letters with shaking hands. "David," he pulled out a 4th envelope. "This is for you. I can't. You don't have to read it now or ever, but I needed you to have it." He stood to leave. "David, wait." Abana's voice stopped him. "I'm scared." He turned. "Of what?" "That I'm making the same mistake you did, running instead of fighting." Silence filled the room. Abana continued, voice breaking, "You told me love is a choice, every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And I've been choosing fear, just like you did 7 years ago. Abana, I've been protecting myself instead of risking my heart, building walls instead of bridges, and I'm terrified that I'm destroying something real because I'm too scared to try." David's breath caught. "You have every right to protect yourself, after what I did. But is that who I want to be? The woman who builds walls, or the woman who fights for what she loves?" Her hands trembled as she opened the 4th envelope. Read it. It wasn't a love letter. It was a legal document. David had put everything, his remaining savings, his investments, every asset, into a trust for Pearl and Talia. Abana was the executor. He'd signed away everything. At the bottom, a handwritten note. "This is proof I'm not here for your money. I'm not here for anything except you and our daughters. Everything I have is theirs. I just want to be part of their lives. That's all I've ever wanted." Abana looked up, tears streaming. "You gave them everything. They're my everything. You're my everything." She stood, walked to him, looked in his eyes. "If I do this, if I let you in, you need to understand what you're promising. Stability for our daughters. Partnership with me. Staying when I'm difficult, when life is boring, when it's not romantic." "I know. You're really moving to London?" "I already have the job, the apartment. I was going regardless of what you decided." Abana cupped his face, 7 years of walls finally shattering. "What if I want more than that?" David's voice broke. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm terrified. I'm saying you destroyed me. I'm saying I built myself back up and I don't need you." "I know, but I want you. God help me, I still want you." They kissed, desperate, 7 years pouring out, healing and breaking. Abana pulled back. "This doesn't fix everything." "I know. You have years of proving yourself." "I know. And if you ever make me regret this—" David kissed her again, pulled back. "I won't. I swear on everything I am." She took his hand, led him upstairs. They moved carefully. This wasn't just physical. It was restoration. Every touch an apology. Every kiss a promise. Afterward, lying together, Abana traced patterns on his chest. "We're not telling the girls yet. We take this slow. Whatever you need. And therapy, couples therapy, starting next week. Already researched therapists in London." She laughed. "You're serious about this?" David turned to face her. "Abana, I lost you once. I spent 7 years in hell. I'm never losing you again. Those are big words. Watch me back them up." 3 months later, London. Pearl and Talia's 7th birthday, small party in their London flat. David was there, living 15 minutes away, seeing them 4 times weekly, slowly becoming dad. The girls didn't know about the relationship yet, but they knew their parents smiled at each other now. Later, David knelt to their level. "Want to know a secret?" Both girls leaned in. "I'm the luckiest man alive, because I get to be your father, and because your mother gave me a second chance I didn't deserve." Talia hugged him. "We're glad you came back." Pearl said, "We love you, David." His eyes glistened. "I love you both too." After girls went to bed, David and Abana stood on the balcony overlooking London. "No regrets?" David asked. Abana leaned into him. "Thousands, but none about this. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret this." "That's a long time." "Not long enough." They kissed as the city sparkled below, 2 broken people who found their way back. Not because it was easy, because they chose it, every day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. The end.